Okay, folks, welcome back to Family Justice Denied. We have a new episode. We have a new subject matter. Today's subject matter is something that a lot of advocates, whether professional or private or parents, don't really understand when you first start advocating and voicing against the corruption, against the falsehoods of family courts, is the backlash you'll get. Now, everyone that I've ever met since I've been doing this in 2017, including Joani, all professionals, all the lawyers, all the psychologists, all the parents have had some sort of backlash happen to them. Now, Joani, your backlash has lasted, God, how many years? And it's still
25.
ongoing.
25 at minimum.
Yeah, and it's still ongoing simply because you speak out against a system that is wrong.
It's flawed.
Yeah.
It's flawed, heavily flawed.
I mean, let's just list some of the names besides yourself. We have Linda Gottlieb, Linda Steinberg.
Lynn Steinberg.
Okay. I mean, just dozens and dozens of professional names whose licenses are being attacked because they're not going with the status quo that makes the money. I know parents, myself included, have been locked up for speaking out. Under miscellaneous accusations and laws that doesn't apply to anybody else. And it causes a fear factor, I think, in a lot of people's minds when that first retaliation happens. Like, oh my God, I'm going to jail for something for just speaking out. These are First Amendment protected rights that people are doing, and family court is using that against them.
Correct.
I mean, just let's use your case, for example, and we won't get case specific, but your case has been continued how many times when it should have already been dismissed?
Oh my God. This case in 2023 got continued when I got a new attorney, and the prosecutor knew they were in trouble, that they didn't have a case. And it got put back on the docket and didn't come back up until February of this year, when the prosecutor played a game.
And the average case, like in your case, would have been already dismissed, would have been done.
Yep, it's actually over 5 years.
Yeah, but they just keep hounding you, hoping that you'll go away, that you'll stop.
Exactly.
It's individuals like you. I mean, all the other people, professionals, we know the attorneys that have been retaliated against, that have had their license threatened, that have had to move out of the country for their safety.
Yes, correct.
That it's something I don't think a lot of people fully understand. Let's take the case of the Georgia. I think she was a senator in Georgia a few years back that had a press conference, stated that she had physical evidence, documented evidence of the corruption in their family court system. And the night before she was going to reveal the evidence, her and her husband got killed.
Yep.
This made a blip on mainstream media, but within the community of advocacy, it spread like a wildfire.
Correct. And it was just a disaster.
And there's still no, as far as I understand, there's still no leads in that investigation or anything. When you start advocating, I think it's very important that you understand the risks that you're taking.
Correct.
Retaliation is going to happen, whether it be from a family court judge, the municipality, the state, it is going to happen. And it's going to happen to varying degrees. I've known parents who had custody of their kids. Once they started speaking out, custody was removed.
Yep. I've had them where they're actually falsely accused of crimes just to get them to stop fighting for their kids.
We mention it off and on through a couple of shows, the silver bullet tactic. This is a tactic that's not only used by adversarial parties, it's used by the state, by the local municipalities to prevent people from speaking out. Let's look at England. And I find this very interesting in England that you're not allowed to speak about your case at all, or you're going to jail.
Right.
Period. There's no freedom of speech on that over there. But here in the United States, we have that protection, or we believe we have that protection, and it's ignored. Look at the parents that have had retaliation, have tried to fight the retaliation, have sued the municipalities and lost their case. And then on top of that, had to pay for all that stuff.
I know, right? And still no justice.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think. I think one of the reasons we chose the name Family Justice Denied is because I think the majority of the time in family courts, domestic relations courts, there is no justice because the kids, no matter how it turns out, always pay a price.
Yep. It's like it's not any, what really annoys me is most of them are the guardian ad litems or crappy attorneys who don't get it, who are it's supposed to be there for the best interest of the children, but how is any of this in the best interest of the child?
Yeah. I mean, let's for example, let's talk about the family court judges. Now, we both have met 1,000 people that have spoken out about judges they've had in their cases, whether they were a lawyer or something. They've always had something bad to say about family court judge.
Right.
And it's viewed as he said, she said.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, even though a lot of it that you've heard and that I've heard has been factual, and you can clearly tell it's a bias against the parties, they still do it because they know they can get away with it.
And it's disgusting. This shouldn't be.
And then you have these judges that get pissed off when they hear about it and they say, well, guess what? I'm just going to go with the other side no matter what you show, no matter what you say. It's no matter what the kids have to pay. We have this imaginary thing that judges are supposed to be impartial.
Correct.
Well, we also forget that judges are human, are corruptible like everybody else, are biased like everybody else. And you probably heard this, there's an old saying, Lady Justice has that blindfold over her eyes for a reason. She doesn't want to see the corruption that's happening in the judicial system.
Agreed.
And sometimes, I hate saying this, but it is a fact of the retaliation, is that sometimes it does get too much for an advocate, for a lawyer, for a parent who's speaking out, and they wind up taking their own life.
Yes, because they cannot do it anymore.
It becomes so overwhelming for them. And this is just wrong. It's swept under the rug. I'm a journalist, and I notice mainstream media has a rule. If it bleeds, it leads. But when these incidents happen, no one touches it.
Correct.
Why is that? I mean, it's news. It's factual. But mainstream media will not report on parental suicides unless it kind of goes along with the status quo.
Correct.
And that is go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and that is a major issue because that's not the way it's supposed to be. This is not how things are should be happening. It should not it should not occur that we have to protect ourselves from attacks because of our First Amendment rights, basically. I'm not telling you that everybody who is activating their First Amendment rights is right about it, but it really is a disaster with what's going on and how it's being abused.
I know for a fact, because I was there, and this was in South Carolina, there was a judge that was up for re-election by the legislative board.
Right.
And there were two parents there who were going to speak out. There were actually 5 parents there who were going to speak out, but only two were allowed because they signed up in time. The other three were a day late. Uh, when these parents spoke out, they had stacks of paper, stacks of proof, and everything why this judge should not be reelected. Later on in their cases, they were suddenly retaliated against. They none of their motions were approved. Because they simply spoke out and believed that this particular individual should not be a family court judge.
Oh, we've done that here in Connecticut. And unfortunately, what they do is, like with the attorneys, they say to them, well, either face the music and either lose your license and your pensions or retire. And of course, what do they do if they know the case is solid against them? They retire. And there's nothing we can do because now they're retired and they've gotten out of trouble unless you want to mount a huge lawsuit against them.
It's funny. In Connecticut, and I know in South Carolina, family court judges, all judges in South Carolina, are appointed by the Judiciary Committee. In Connecticut, how are they? Are they elected by the people or are they appointed?
Appointed.
Okay. Yeah, I find it funny that most states elect their regular judges, but family court or domestic relation court judges are appointed.
All of our judges are appointed, except for probate, which is elected. And maybe your chief justice, even your chief justice isn't elected, they're appointed. The
Yeah, they're
only
appointed.
judge, right, the only judge I can think of that is not elected is a probate judge. But let me double check that. In Connecticut are elected. I'm pretty sure it's only probate judges, but let's double check. Probate judges, it's the only one. The only one.
Okay, let me check something because I don't want to put misinformation out, but I as we talk, these ideas come to mind, and that's what I like about the show is
Yes, that we will bring up topics that people don't typically get a chance to talk about or don't are afraid to talk about or don't know that these topics even exist to talk about. I mean, this retaliation stuff is just horrific. I One of my colleagues was so badly harassed, she lost her business, lost everything, and had to move from the United States to an entire other country so that where these people just had no leverage to do anything to her. Others are fighting back with all sorts of videos and articles that they're writing. There are some parents now that are out there suing some of these people that are retaliating against them. There's an attorney out there now who's suing, filed a RICO case, which is his specialty, upon the family courts. I think it was Minnesota or something, because of a pattern of behavior that he saw. And that's just it. We wouldn't even know what was really going on, except there is a clear pattern of behavior that shows there is somebody behind the scenes, something behind the scenes that is causing the retaliation. The pattern is just way too clear. It's too coincidental. Too many things just would not happen typically in this fashion. And so it's that that lack of coincidence. It's not coincidental. It's too much of a pattern for it not to be retaliatory or somebody behind the scenes dictating what's going on.
yeah, I mean that's one of the big questions, and I'm going to talk while this thing's still doing its search. But who is it in these states that's basically running the show? Is it the legislators? Is it the a separate body? Is it people with money?
Well, here in
Who?
Connecticut, it's the good old boys and girls club. It's the attorneys, which trickles up to the judges because many of those judges were attorneys that worked with many of these other attorneys, and they all kind of wash hands. So, the it once those attorneys have established a positive reputation with the courts. It's very hard to break that and show the courts, hey, there's an issue with this attorney, or show the judiciary or anybody that there's a problem with this attorney, unless somebody actually can really put together a solid case. And I know of only one father who's actually put together a huge solid case against an attorney guardian ad litem here, but he couldn't get her to lose her license because the grievance panel said, hey, look, this is a huge case against you. You either face the music and lose your license to practice law or retire early. And she retired early.
It's funny because before we were recording, before the show, we were talking about possibly doing a subject matter on how AI doesn't necessarily bring up valid points when it comes to parental alienation. And I use ChatGPT, which I love. And, you said that you have to argue with yours and you have to educate yours, and I'm doing the same here. But when I asked that how many family court judges are elected versus appointed, it basically gave me, in many state trial courts, which often include family court law courts or divisions, use a variety of selection methods. Some judges are elected, some are appointed, some use nomination commission, appointment, retention, election, et cetera, et cetera. So it didn't give me a precise breakdown. It gave me a bunch of jargon that runs around the circle.
Can you ask it to be specific state by state?
Yeah.
Let's see what it comes back with. I mean, it's very interesting, folks, about using AI. You do have to be very careful. It doesn't always give you accurate information, or it misses something and you have to go back and provide it a document to correct it so that it knows the actual correct information. When I was putting in things about parental alienation, it kept claiming that the opposition had solid evidence that by putting parental alienation in the DSM and ICD, it would cause harm. Well, in fact, it would do the reverse. What it was citing was people who are against parental alienation and don't believe it's real, and have bogus scientific evidence they've put together that is now under investigation in and of itself. AI was picking up the suspect, erroneous scientific evidence from these people. I had to actually provide it with true scientific empirical evidence from real research that was verifiable. When we say verifiable, understand it means that you didn't just run a research or study once. You did it at least 3 times and were able to get the same test results all 3 times. The people that are claiming parental alienation isn't real, they only test their matter once and it never is able to be replicated, which means their studies and research are invalid. But AI can't decipher for this. You have to provide it the evidence to say, no, here's the evidence. Here's the proof that there is empirical scientific evidence, and here's the evidence that what you're citing is not real. And what did you get back at Clint?
Apparently, AI believes that every state doesn't have a family court, that certain states kind of compile it in with general court sessions and stuff, which is funny. Okay, what it gave me is that below is a list of US 50 states plus DC, and say whether they have separated dedicated family court states. Okay, yada, yada. Okay, so state by state, Alabama has a separate court in selected areas. Family court pilot selection location, yada, 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 and is by partisan election. Alaska, merit appointment, judicial council, governor retention elections. Arizona, retention elections, merit appointed. Arkansas, elections. California varies by county, apparently. Some have gubernatorial appointments and otherwise nonpartisan elections. Colorado uses a nominating commission for appointment retention thereafter. I mean, these are why the large variancy in how we pick these people. Um, family court judges are appointed in
Wait,
Delaware.
okay, wait for it. Okay, so I just asked Google which is then an AI overview. What states in the U.S. do not have family courts? Connecticut is listed as not having a family court, and we know damn well Connecticut has a separate family court. They actually have to have a separate courthouse for it and courtrooms for it.
And that's what I find interesting. People have gone to trusting AI so much in every walk of their life today that they forget that the factualities of exist outside of AI, like what you
Yep.
just read. According to Google, there's no family court in Connecticut. But you yourself and dozens and dozens and dozens of individuals in Connecticut know there is.
Okay, so now I just asked the same question of Claude AI, not Google AI. Claude AI says all U.S. states handle family law matters. Okay, we know that differently, but not all have specialized family courts as separate divisions. The distinction is in how these cases are. In states without specialized family court divisions are South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, North Carolina, and North Dakota. Here, Connecticut isn't listed. So, folks, lesson for you. Google AI is not very accurate. Use a dedicated AI like Claude, ChatGPT, or what's the other one, Grok? I don't know there how
Yeah,
Grok there isn't because it's iffy. Claude
yeah,
AI and ChatGPT seem to be the better, but it might also be because more people use it, therefore more information is brought in and more information is being saved and updated in those AI systems. I don't know, but
yeah,
clearly Google
yeah.
AI is definitely off.
It goes back to what we were saying from the very beginning when we started the show is that factuality versus what and I'll just use the term propaganda is used out there, including AI, Google, Yahoo, all these other websites that people go to. It's not reality. You know, we forget that these sites are programs that I can put into any program, any information I want, and that will suddenly become the norm if people jump onto it.
This is true. So if you have enough people following you, anything becomes now, oh, that's the truth because somebody's following you. No,
Exactly.
that doesn't make it true. That just means that you've got a bunch of people who are easily brainwashed and coercively controlled to believe you.
Exactly. It's where do people go to get the news nowadays? It's not their TVs, it's not their radios, it's social media.
A lot of people, yes. Your older people are still watching the news. But you're right. A lot of people the younger generations are absolutely going to the internet to get their news.
Yeah. They'll read somebody's post, oh, this accident just happened, yada, yada, yada. I just passed it. That's where they're getting their information from.
Yep.
Uh, But this also leads into why the retaliation isn't reported that these advocates, these professionals get from the system, because it's not reported, it's not publicly known unless they speak out, and then there's more retaliation. A lot of social media sites won't even allow nowadays people to talk about retaliation against governments and entities like family courts and stuff
It's
because they
really a
consider it
shame.
too political.
Yes, I mean, do I understand they're covering their backside? Yes, okay, because they don't want to get sued for allowing somebody to publicly put something out there, blah blah blah. But on the under end of it, there's so much false information that is allowed to be processed and put out there, and people believe it. Recently somebody was declared as dead and they weren't dead. Yes, they were on their deathbed and they are dying, but they aren't quite dead yet.
Yeah, and that's the thing that gets me. It's now we all do Facebook nowadays. I mean, it's how we stay in touch with friends and family and stuff. But when I go to the pages set up like what's happening Fayetteville and stuff, these are private pages that people have set up. They have admins that monitor posts and stuff. And what always surprises me is that someone who is a monitor is either a sheriff, a county council, a mayor. There's always some political member who is an admin that will allow or deny posts on these private sites that are designed for the public.
Wikipedia is a prime example of false information. We can't even get Wikipedia to properly correct the information. We created a category for parental alienation. One of the opposition went in and altered her paragraphs, and they're monitoring. If we go in to re-correct it, they're monitoring it and having it re-switched back. If they provided none of their own scientific evidence, they're making statements that are not even in the evidence that we submitted, like all the links that we put in for all the articles and scientific empirical evidence. Those comments that these opposition are altering our Wikipedia comment, Wikipedia entry in doesn't match the evidence that's been and links. We keep going in and telling them you need to fix this, and you're not correcting. You're letting them switch it back. Wikipedia just contacted me because I stopped my donations to them, and they want me to redonate. So I wrote back, there will be no way I will redonate until you properly fix the parental alienation site and understand that what you've allowed them to substitute in isn't backed by the literature and links that were provided at the end of the article, because what's at the end of the article is the truth.
But even that is a retaliation. I mean, when we think retaliation, we think, hardcore stuff. And it's small things like what you just described that is a retaliation against the factual evidence.
Yep. Anybody who claims that parental alienation is not real and is junk science clearly needs their head examined, because they are listening to propaganda. Go back to the McCarthyism era with communism, where everyone was being accused of being a communist because they talked to the wrong person, or they had the wrong dishes, or they had the wrong colored shirt on.
Hollywood during World War I and World War II, good examples of it.
Yes.
All these famous actors were listed as communists because they had a friend or they went to a meeting or something like this. They weren't communist, they were just curious.
Right. And the problem with these people that are putting out all this propaganda, they're not curious. They're about making sure that their side is the only side that gets anything, because they have so much money they can monetarily influence. They have so many connections that they can influence through connections, and those connections and that money and the people who are being influenced by those things have no desire to know the truth. All they care about is the dollar sign and the connection.
And that's where we come back to, when we talk about domestic relations courts, is follow the money trails, and the money trails split off so much that one organization, one individual cannot trace all of it.
I mean, look, here in Connecticut, when we spoke up in January 9, 2014, there was a massive amount of outpouring of people speaking up about how bad the family courts are, how bad the guardian ad litem system is. And we got oversight, but retaliation. The guardian ad litems went behind the scenes and changed the policy, a policy that isn't adjudicated or looked at by the judiciary, so that they could get rid of anybody that they didn't want to grandfather in.
See, because you made that statement, I'm going to say that when I first started back in 2017, we had a rally at the State House, and I put it on every page in South Carolina. And a lot of parents said they would love to come, but they didn't want their faces being seen. They didn't know if somebody from the domestic relations courts was going to be there, jotting down names, taking pictures. And it made me realize that the fear factor that the industry has created to prevent people from speaking out, to prevent people from fighting for their families and their kids, was so impacted in our nature now that it basically becomes a society of fear, period.
Yes, it
We
does.
have parents who love their children, who are good to their children, but they're scared to fight for their children because they know they're going to get retaliated against.
Yep, it's very true. And this should not be happening. We should
Yeah.
not fear a system that was supposed to be set up to protect our rights. I mean, I'm sitting in Connecticut. What does the Connecticut license plate say at the bottom? The Constitution state. Come on. Connecticut is anything but the Constitution state.
Yeah. Well, I
And
mean,
it's sad.
look at when you had me join and start doing the webinars with you, is you told me that you guys had to monitor who was coming in because they had people coming in to record, to take this information and spin it and start taking names and stuff like this to influence these individuals' court cases, to stop them from joining, stop them from speaking out. You know, people do not, I don't think, fully understand that when you choose to advocate against a corrupt system like this, that you're messing with people's money.
Yep.
And when you mess with somebody's money, especially in the amounts that we're talking about, there's going to be significant backlash. Now, does that mean you shouldn't? Does that mean you shouldn't speak out? You shouldn't voice your opinion? No. What you need to do is make it loud to where they can't bury it.
That's why we have so many people are now asking for court watchers on their cases
Yep.
because a lot of courts will not record what's going on. And if they do, they edit them. I had this happen to me with one of my cases against DCF, where when I asked for the transcript, they took 2 years to get me the transcript, so they had enough time to alter it. So then we handed it over to transcriptionists. The transcriptionists were transcribing what they heard, but which really wasn't what had happened.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why, you see it all on social media and stuff all day long. People demanding that states now record, have cameras in these courtrooms.
Yep.
Publicly accessible cameras. So people can watch these cases. Several states have denied this, saying that these cases are private, that these cases are personal. People are asking for people to watch.
And because they're not being allowed to record. So they now need people that can be in the courtroom and be a witness to what's really going on because there's so much corruption.
One of the things that I found interesting in South Carolina is that the court hearings are recorded. They're audio recorded. And that's what the transcriptor goes by. If you order your transcripts, she'll listen to the recording, and that's when she starts typing it out. So what gets me is that you cannot get a copy of the audio recording. They consider that private, but you have to pay.
No sense.
Well, but you have to pay for the transcripts. And I think it's most of your transcripts that I've heard are anywhere from $1,000 to $1,800.
Okay, so here's an interesting one. Here in Connecticut, if you have 88 accommodations, you can request a free copy of the transcript of the trial or whatever. And what they do is they don't give you a transcript; they give you the audio because they don't want to pay the transcriptionist.
In South Carolina, it's different. The audio recording would have been put on a CD and would have ran you $5. So $5 compared to the $1,800 they're going to make if they have it transcribed, it's all money. And I forget where this is at, but under federal law, the audio transcriptions is the private property of the parties, not the court, the parties. So they should have access to it. There's a couple of cases in South Carolina now in their Supreme Court fighting this fact.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, but I think that's a good place to close it out for today. We've covered a lot of information.
Yeah, and now just because Clint didn't bother to properly introduce us, I'm Joan Kloth-Zanard, and that is Clint Doran. We are your hosts for Family Justice Denied.
You got the name. You got the name. We have such a problem remembering the name of our own show because we've changed it. We've thought about it, and we're sticking with this one.
Yeah, part of which is because we couldn't find the right name that really fit with so many of the topics that we talk about, Clint.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we discussed this for how many months before we started this, and all the aspects that play into it, regular court, family court, federal legislation, state legislation, county, all these sort of aspects play into it. And it's like a spider web that just keeps growing and growing. So we couldn't really put our finger on how we wanted to disseminate the information out to people, and thereby not knowing how to properly title the show.
So we're going to say to you, if you don't like the name of the show, let us know. Maybe we didn't name it right yet.
Yeah,
Hopefully
I'm
we
going to
did,
direct
though.
you directly to the Joni when that happens.
We hope we've actually given it the right name this time. So, folks, we want to thank you for joining us. Clint, anything else?
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, we do this every Sunday. The videos usually hit the YouTube channel on Tuesdays if I don't have anything else going on. Uh, but subscribe, share, that's the thing. The other thing I always want to mention is that PSI does have a GoFundMe. What they provide for parents and children is very important. The donations cover counseling, therapy, consultations and stuff. It's very important that these funds are received, even if it's $5, $10. All that mounts up. Uh,
Mostly, we don't really cover the cost of people's personal therapy or counseling. We do consulting and help direct them to the right resources or professionals that can do that for them. But it helps us pay for Zoom. Zoom is very expensive for us to have it at the level that we have it at. To have a website that we can pour resources into, that's very expensive for us. To have emails, to have domains, all of this is very expensive. And we try not to charge people a lot of money.
yeah,
Literally, our membership is $50 once a year for parents and extended family.
I think that's also why we enjoy doing the show, because we're able to get that information out to people for free. It costs the organization, but those people don't have to pay for it. One of the things I do want to talk about, I think this will be our subject matter for next week, is grandparents' rights. How grandparents who are fighting for their children are being denied.
If you would like to email us any information or topics, you can do it to familyjusticedenied@gmail.com.
Yeah, new email, folks. We're growing, so I think that's where we'll end it. Joni, you
Thank you.
got a storm head. Yeah, you got a storm heading your way. Ours is leaving, so be safe.
You too.